In the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, during the early 2000s, countless women and girls were taken from the streets and forgotten about simply because of the vocation they were involved in. As police pushed aside the concerns from their loved ones, these women were instead being murdered and buried in a mass grave out in the West Mesa. Join Sage and Frank today as we discuss the West Mesa Bone Collector. Hi everyone, welcome back to
Unknown,
Unsolved
unseen.
Triple U.
Woohoo!
Yes.
What
I
is-
did an introduction today, guys.
I know, but I'm gonna act like I didn't hear your introduction, so I can act all surprised when you tell me what the topic is today. But what episode's this? 48.
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh, 48. We're getting somewhere. We're almost at that good old 52, and then 53, and 51's important.
What's better than 52?
53.
Yeah. Do you have announcements or anything?
Yeah, I need to make that post still on those accounts. Oh, sorry, on those events because I've been kind of silent on our social media. I've been busy with my job and the pupper. So sorry, everybody. Besides that, the only other announcement I have is go check out some of those podcasts we have been collabing with. I actually think we might sneak in a little message from one of them today.
Maple syrup and being polite. I'm Valerie, host of Canadian Creepies, the podcast that digs up stories polite history would rather forget. Cold cases that never found justice, haunted places that refuse to stay quiet, and folklore with a dark side you've probably never heard. If true crime, paranormal mysteries, and unsettling Canadian history are your thing, you'll want to tune in. New episodes every week wherever you get your podcasts. Canadian Creepies, exploring and exposing the shadows of the true north.
All right, but that was Canadian Creepies. Go check them out. I've listened to quite a few of their episodes. They are a really great podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
I did.
Then, Sage, where are you taking us today?
Well, as you heard in the intro, we're gonna be traveling to New Mexico today.
New Mexico. Again.
Yep. To discuss a really tragic and frustrating case of the West Mesa Bone Collector, who was a serial killer that was active in the early 2000s.
Just curious, I think, is this our third New Mexico episode?
I couldn't tell you.
We have Dulce Base and Roswell, so I think this is New Mexico the third.
Okay. Needless to say, there are going to be some intense trigger warnings. These include death, including the discussion of strangulation, decapitation, and other just gruesome details. The list would have been too long to list them all out. Missing women and girls, death of an unborn fetus, discussion of rape and other sexual crimes, sex work and pimping, escort services, drug dealing, sex trafficking, and possible connections to Jeffrey Epstein. If you aren't comfortable with any of these triggers, then we will see you in the next episode, and we hope you take care of yourself. And if you continue ahead and listen, then please make sure that you take breaks if necessary, and take care of yourself following listen to this one. I gotta say, it's really sad, and so...
You know, I'm glad you're doing this one because I almost did this episode a couple weeks ago, and then I just pivoted instead to William Bradford Bishop and did that instead, and it skipped over this one, and it looks like you got to it first, and you know what? I think you're going to do a better job than what I would have done.
Oh, thanks.
Also, I've done enough New Mexico myself.
That's fair.
I think New Mexico is our second most covered state after Pennsylvania because we have like almost 7 or 8 Pennsylvania episodes already.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of PA.
Yeah.
Might be because we live in PA.
That would, track. But, yeah, no, true crime's definitely my forte, I would say, so...
I'm more of cryptids and aliens and other shenanigans.
Yeah, so... So today, we're gonna travel again to New Mexico, specifically the West Mesa area of Albuquerque. And I'm just gonna provide a little bit of background, real quick, to how these bodies were discovered. But due to the 2008 housing bubble collapse, development of a new neighborhood was halted before the houses could be built. Plots of land originally designed for homes and with their initial dirt work completed laid vacant in this area. After neighbors of the West Mesa complained of flooding at the platted sites, the original developer of the land was responsible for correcting the problem. Thus, the developer had a retaining wall built to channel stormwater to a retention pond that was on the lot. What they weren't expecting was that this retaining wall would send the water to the retention pond, which was also in the approximate area of an unknown serial killer's burial ground. February 2nd, 2009, there was a woman named Christine Ross who was walking her dog, Ruka, through Albuquerque's west side after leaving their home in the same area. Christine reported that she loved this area for walking her puppy because it was a space for her dog to run freely without any issues with overcrowding or other neighbors. And when I say dogs doing what they do best, what would that be, Frank?
I mean, there's a lot of things dogs do best.
Well, no, what about when you're walking them?
Well, what they do best is eating socks, but Atlas does actually do that on the walk. People put socks on the sidewalk all the time in our neighborhood. But I'm going to say sniffing around and grabbing some random items.
Absolutely. So, Ruka was exploring, sniffing, right? And then came across a large bone that was protruding from the side of the trail. After assessing that the bone didn't look normal to her, despite her, limited knowledge of bone structure, as I'm pretty sure most people probably wouldn't have known, Christine decided to reach out to her sister, who was a registered nurse. She took a photo of the bone, because again, this is in 2009, so we have iPhones at this time.
Whoa, technology.
Yeah, took a photo of the bone, sent it via text to her sister. A little while later, her sister responded and said that bone resembled a human femur, and it would be best to reach out to authorities. So, Christine immediately notified the Albuquerque Police Department that she and her pup had found what they believed to be a piece of human bone.
I like that you write it she and her pup.
I know, I call him a puppy, a pup, a dog. I don't know how old he was, but all dogs are puppies, so.
He's a puppy.
He really is a puppy.
Yeah,
He's a big puppy.
Our boy's a puppy. In case you guys were wondering, I was pointing at our sleeping boy at my feet.
Yeah. Arriving at the scene were police and forensic units, which quickly determined that the bone was in fact human. Though I don't know that I read that it was ever confirmed that it was actually a femur, but I would assume it was at least one of the long bones. So, with the femur being the thickest, it was probably that one. So, what would you do if you were on a walk with Atlas? You discovered a human bone.
Call the cops?
That's good. What if he ate it? What if he picked it up?
I would get him away from the bone first off, because if I ever seen any bones, because I do see dead birds that are half bone at this point, and I keep them away from him.
Yeah, our dog.
And also people who leave chicken bones out there, which Alice has tried to go for. The people who do that, fuck them.
Yeah, go fuck yourselves, because that's very dangerous for a dog. But, I mean, a lot of bones are, but those in particular.
He keeps putting his nose on my toes.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't say whether or not, like, Ruka went after the bone, but just that she discovered it. So I know that our dog, if that was the case, probably would have went after it. It's a perfect chew toy. It's horrible to think about if it's a human being.
Too big, he would just sniff it.
That's fair. That's fair. He is very picky about his chew toys. So what started as the discovery of one human bone ended up becoming a mass grave of an unknown killer who to this day remains unknown. Hence its appearance on our show. Obviously. Over the course of the next 3 months following this discovery, the investigators would go on to find the skeletal remains of 9 women and 2 teenage girls buried in the ground on the West Mesa. They would also discover that one of the victims had been about 4 months pregnant at the time. The finding of the remains was overwhelming for the Albuquerque police, who had not seen a murder case like this before, and so they requested the help of the FBI. The dirt had to be sifted by hand to prevent anything from being overlooked.
Geez, this is becoming a large-scale thing real fast.
Really fast. Authorities used ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs in hope of finding every remains that were buried at the burial site. They also used satellite maps and imagery taken between 2003 and 2005, where they were able to identify tire marks and patches of disturbed soil in the area where the remains were recovered. According to the satellite photos, the last victim of the West Mesa Bone Collector murderer was buried in 2005, because by 2006, development of the housing complex began in the area, and soon after, the burial site had been disturbed, buried, and platted for residential development without being identified as a burial ground. So, this is really morbid, but it was the perfect place for this person to dispose these bodies. Because it got covered. If the water hadn't come through and the retaining wall hadn't been built to allow the water to erode the way that it did, these remains would have never been found.
So they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, which is really scary. I mean, when you think about it, there's 11 of them. So they got away with at least that many. So at this time, there are 11 identified bodies that were found on the West Mesa, but that is not the only victims that police believe are connected to this unknown killer. But before I go into those who might be victims, let's go through each of the identified ones, because it's important that cases like these, where we make sure to focus on the victims and finding their killer, rather than talking about the killer themselves. Obviously, this is not a podcast that's going to go into a lot of detail about killers, because if we've caught them, it's not unsolved. So it does us a little bit of a favor that we can focus more on the victims than shows like, Morbid, Crime Junkie, things like that. But either way, I want to make sure that we think about this from the perspective of catching the killer and talking about the victims. These are someone's loved ones. I'm not going to go in age order of them, but I am going to go in the order of when the girls and women went missing. So the first victim that went missing was Monica Deanna Candelaria, who disappeared on May 15th, 2003. She was born on June 20th, 1981, and was 22 at the time of her disappearance and death. Monica's family described her as a person that enjoyed laughing, joking, taking care of babies in the family, and spending time with her family. She was spirited, hilarious, and a joyful person. Monica was a young mother who had been involved with gangs as well as sex work, which is likely why it took a few weeks for her to be reported missing.
So you said 2003, right?
Yeah, so she was the first one that they could identify of the 11 that went missing. She had the earliest missing persons report.
And these bones were discovered in 2009?
Yeah, February 2009. So almost 6 years.
Would they have planned to develop it for that long?
Well, the development started being planned in 2006, and then the 2008 housing crisis stopped it.
Yeah.
And so then it became vacant because there was no money to build the houses.
And did you say they still, after this was found, they still made houses there?
No, right now there's no houses there.
Okay.
I don't believe.
So, sorry if I'm going on a tangent already. I'm wondering, did whoever did this keep the bodies somewhere else for a while, then move them there, or were they putting them there well before the plans for the development were there? Because that's a 3-year gap we're talking here.
Yeah, so my understanding is they were putting them there from the get-go. This is not necessarily a secluded area, but it's not a well-traveled area because it wasn't developed at the time. And so I don't know that they were expecting for the housing development to go in, but what we saw too is due to satellite and stuff, they could see that the last victim was buried in 2005, because in 2006 the development started happening. So either whoever did the killing moved their burial spot because the development started coming up, or maybe they left, maybe they died, I don't know. But the second victim who went missing was Victoria Ann Chavez, who disappeared on June 5th, 2003. So just 2 weeks later, pretty much, or almost 3 weeks. But she would not be reported missing for over a year.
Wow.
Because of the work that she did. She had been convicted of sex work 5 times, and the missing persons report described her as, quote, a known drug user and prostitute, end quote. I don't use the term prostitute as a term that I am saying. I use it as a quote from the actual thing because, that's not the word that we use anymore. Also, I want to say that, like, the first victim, Monica, had a lot of information from her family about, like, what they would say about her and stuff, but that's not the case for all of these victims. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the seclusion that they got from their families due to the work that they did. And I could go on and on about how this prejudice against drug users and sex workers has significantly impacted, like, the fact that these women have not been found until 2009 when their bodies were discovered. Victoria would be one of the first bodies to be discovered at the site, though. So second missing, one of the first uncovered. The third victim who went missing, this is a teenager, was 15-year-old Selenia Tareen Edwards on August 17th, 2003. So just 2 months later. So if this is I'm assuming it's the work of one killer because they're all buried together. That is the time between these kills is not a lot of time. Which is, like, when you think about serial killer patterns, that's crazy that you, within 3 weeks and then 1.5 months, you could have taken 3 people. Like, that's just really sad. So at the time of her disappearance, she had run away from her foster family in Lawton, Oklahoma, and was classified as, quote, an endangered runaway. Selenia had been involved in the system since she was 5 years old when her mother went to jail. She was spotted in Aurora, Colorado in 2004, where she had been seen with other sex workers on East Colfax Avenue. She may have been staying at the Tanger Motel and was seen with Lucretia, Ty, and Diamond, other sex workers. And she may have been using the nicknames Mimi or Chocolate. Oh, I wanted to make this. So, I guess it wouldn't be necessarily that this serial killer was taking them within a couple months of each other. These are when they went missing. So in this girl's case, she was missing August 17th of 2003, but it was because she ran away from home. So she had been seen in 2004 in Colorado.
Okay.
So it's not that she didn't get killed in 2003, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So she might have been killed in 2004 is the last time she was definitively seen.
Yeah.
So sometime after, either during or after 2004, she was killed.
Yeah. So she was found in the same area, of course, as the other victims in West Mesa, New Mexico, which indicated that she had been killed sometime between her sighting in Colorado in 2004 and 2005 before the housing development began construction in early 2006. Selenia was identified via a forensic sketch that was compared with the photos of missing children posted online, and they used dental records from the Office of the Medical Investigator to confirm the identification. Selenia was also the only black girl of the victims, and the only girl/woman who was not from the area of Albuquerque. Which is just really sad. So she's 15, she's the only black individual there, and then she is also the only one not from Albuquerque.
Interesting. I mean, what if she thinks she might, temporarily, pass through Albuquerque and that's when she was killed?
Yeah, so I do go into it a little bit later, but what a possible theory could be about that, but yeah, I think she was traveling.
Yeah, because to go that far out and bring the body back to Albuquerque.
Yeah, I don't believe that that's what this person did.
It's not feasible.
Yeah. The fourth victim to go missing was 24-year-old. I also saw 27, but I mostly saw 24. Doreen Marquez, who disappeared on October 10th, 2003. She was survived by 2 daughters named Destiny and Mercedes. And reportedly, Doreen was on the, quote, straight and narrow until her boyfriend went to jail and she had began to spiral and would take off for months at a time. Therefore, when she went missing, her family didn't know that she was even missing. And so they assumed she would turn up soon, like she had all the times before. And that was not the case. As at that point, believed that she had been killed. The next victim to go missing was Veronica Romero, who was 28 at the time of her disappearance when she went missing on Valentine's Day. It's February 14th, 2004. The last contact that Veronica's family had with her was in the first week of February, but they didn't officially report her missing until February 14th. At the time of her death, she was a mother to 5 children. And according to witnesses, she had gotten into a white pickup truck at the corners of Wyoming Boulevard and Central Avenue in Albuquerque, and that was the last time she had been seen alive.
Okay, so at least some form of something.
Yeah, and I don't believe that they have ever figured out that white pickup truck. Which sucks.
Yeah. I mean, also, white pickup truck is very vague, and I'm assuming out there's probably many white pickup trucks.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that would have a lot of them.
Yeah, it's just,
Unfortunately.
I mean,
Why can't they drive stuff like Ted Bundy did, which was a freaking yellow Volkswagen Beetle?
you know, maybe more serial killers should be unique. You know, be like, what was it? Ed Kemper was 6'9". Ted Bundy drove a yellow buggy. Who else did anything very notable that helped get him caught?
Jeffrey Dahmer ate people and kept them in his freezer.
Fair enough, yeah. Do something obvious.
The BTK killer was really stupid.
He's the one who sent the
Yeah.
okay, you can't track me if I send this. Like, no, we totally can't.
Randy Kraft, the scorecard killer, got caught for driving erratically with a dead body in the passenger seat. That was the most recent series on Morbid. 37th or 38th victim. And they believe that he is like 60 something.
Jeez.
Yeah. He was active in the 70s in California, so California was raging with freaking serial killers at that time. But anyway, back to the thing that matters, which is the victims. So the next 2 victims were actually cousins who went missing together. Jamie Caterina Salazar was born September 28th of 1988, and she was 15 at the time of her disappearance. And Evelyn Jesus Maria Salazar, although I didn't get her birthday, was 27. Both girls went missing after leaving a family gathering and going to a park near San Mateo and Gibson Southeast. I read that this park was in what was nicknamed, quote, the war zone area, which I'm assuming has to do with the crime that may take place there. So probably not a very good area. But according to family and other reports, the girls, quote, knew their surroundings, and so it wasn't unusual that they would have walked over to that park. I read that they either went missing on March 26, 2004, but also that the family gathering was in early April, so I couldn't get a definitive date on when the last time they were seen was. Both girls were identified via DNA evidence. Jamie, 15-year-old, his family described her as a typical teenager who was not into drugs or gangs. Her family would report her missing about a week after her disappearance.
At 15 years old.
Yeah, despite not being into drugs or gangs. Evelyn, unfortunately, had her death swept under the rug by law enforcement because she was a known sex worker who struggled with drug dependency. She had 2 daughters, Mariah and Angel, whom she cared for full-time. Her family would come out to say that she was a fantastic cook and she loved the outdoors, especially camping. And that goes to show you, she is more than a sex worker. These are people.
Yeah,
Just because that's the job you do does not mean that you're a horrible person.
I hate the stigmatization against sex workers. Like, it maybe if our society was easier to,
to live in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have this.
Yeah.
And maybe if it was regulated, then you wouldn't have what we're talking about today.
Yeah. I had a I had a client and I like got into a discussion about this, and something I had said too was, you know, legalizing sex work and regulating it is also a harm reduction factor. Like you're active like this is the kind of stuff that happens when they're not being protected.
It's going to happen one way or another. I hate to say it, people, but like you're not eliminating it.
No, but you would dramatically reduce it because it would be much more regulated, which means people would know a lot more about who's doing it
Yep.
and who's where. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. The next victim, so this is victim number 8, was Virginia Cloven, who was last heard from on April 13th, 2004, when she was just 24 years old. She was also identified through DNA evidence. She had been born on August 7th of 1981 and was reported as having a, quote, positive impact on the people around her during her childhood. Fortunately, though, tragedy would strike the family when Virginia's brother was murdered. His death hit Virginia incredibly hard, and she would end up running away from home, which led her to doing sex work to survive. At the time of her disappearance, she had cut off all of her family and friends. The last time the family ever spoke to her was April 13th, 2004, when she called her family to tell them that she had met, quote, a man, and she thought she was going to marry him, end quote. Her father reportedly told her that he wanted to meet this man she wanted to marry and get to know him, but unfortunately this meeting was never going to happen. And so it's not clear what her day of death would be. The day she went missing, they're using that as the last time the family spoke to her.
And there's nobody else out there who knew her or...
That's all her, not that I saw. So, I also, I wrote this episode last week, but I don't believe that the, coroner came out and said, exact times of death or anything like that, which would be really difficult after being buried in the ground for upwards of 4 to 6 years. So that's why these are the assumption dates. It's just not going to be completely accurate, though.
Because some people, some killers keep their victims for long.
Yeah.
Others, it's nearly instant.
Yeah. The next victim is Julie Cindy Nieto, who disappeared on July 15th, 2004, at the age of 24 years old. She's reported as loving to create her own clothes, partially because she was so petite that most clothes didn't fit her, and also just because she was creative. At the time of her death, she was also a mother and had been struggling with drug dependency since she was 19. Like I said, I don't have a lot of information on every victim, unfortunately. I tried to find what I could find. The 10th victim and next to go missing was Cinnamon Elks, who went missing on August 20th, 2004, at the age of 32. So she is the oldest known victim to this specific killer. Everyone else was in their early 20s, and then the 2 teenagers who were both 15. She had also been arrested, like some of the others, for sex work multiple times, and was actually known to be friends with some of the other women who went missing during this time as well. So not necessarily the women that were found in the West Mesa, but there is a list of people who also went missing that they believe they would be able to connect to this killer if this killer were ever found. So she was friends with them. The final victim found on the West Mesa was Michelle Gina Valdez, who went missing on September 22nd, 2004, and had been born August 1st of 1982. And she was 22 at the time. She had also been about 4 months pregnant, and very sadly, the skeletal remains of her unborn child were found buried with her.
That one's brutal.
Yeah. At the time of her death, she had already given birth to 2 children, a daughter named Angelica and a son named Jeremiah. Her father stated in an interview after her body was identified that she, quote, brought light into the room when she came in. She was always a happy-go-lucky girl. Hardly ever was she down. So definitely devastating. That's where that, the trigger warning came in for death of a child. The following list are potential victims of the same killer, or women who went missing in the same area around the same years but haven't been found. These women went missing between 2001 and 2006 and had ties to drug dependence and sex work in the same area of Albuquerque. It's important to note that this is a common characteristic among the victims, but there is at least one victim that we know of that was not involved in these activities. That would be the 15-year-old Jamie. So it cannot be said for certain that this killer's modus operandi, or MO, involves directly targeting sex workers or those with drug dependency. We do assume that, though, because it seems that maybe Jamie could have been just of circumstance because she was with Evelyn, who was known for sex work.
So it's all but one scenario, basically.
Yeah. And again, it was likely she went missing with her cousin who was involved in those activities. And so she may have just unfortunately been a crime of availability.
A victim of happen chance.
Yeah.
Or happenstance,
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one of those Mandela effects. The next victims that they could attribute to this, they believe could be contributed to this killer, are Darlene Marie Trujillo, 20, who was last seen on July 4th, 2001. Martha Jo Luker, 32, who was last seen on September 3rd, 2003. Anna Love Vigil, who was 20, last seen on January 21st, 2005. Felipa Victoria Gonzalez, who's 22, last seen on April 27th, 2005. Nina Brenda Heron, 21, last seen on May 14th, 2005. Jillian Elizabeth Henderson Ortiz, 19, last seen on January 16th, 2006. Chantel Monique Waits, 29, last seen on March 15th, 2006. Leah Rochelle Peebles, 23, last seen on May 5th, 2006. And Vanessa Reed, 24, last seen on June 13th, 2006. So their body, I believe at this time that their bodies have not been found. On December 9th, 2010, so just about, 3 months, under 2 years since the initial bone was found, because it was found February 2nd, 2009, the Albuquerque Police Department released 6 photos of 7 other unidentified women who may be linked to the victims found on the West Mesa. So, from that list that I just read. Well, those are the ones that they've narrowed down. They cannot confirm whether or not they're still alive. Police were cryptic in how they found and obtained the photos, but in the photos were some women who appeared to be unconscious, and many of those in this photo shared the same physical characteristics as the original 11 victims found in February 2009.
And so police did not say how they got this.
No.
That's curious.
Yeah. Following day, so December 10th of 2010, there's my birthday. The police released an additional photograph of a woman. However, this woman would end up being identified by family members who reported that she had actually died of natural causes several years earlier and was very likely not a victim of the bone collector. By December 13th, 2010, police shared with the media that 2 of the women in the 6 photos released were identified as being alive. Police urged and continue to urge those women to come forward, as they may have valuable information that could help capture this killer.
Did they ever come forward?
Not that I know of.
Damn.
Which I don't blame them. Like, that's a similar situation to when I did the Doodler. Like, the stigmatization that comes with being a sex worker or having drug independence is hard enough, but also to know that your photo was released to the world and you were likely unconscious in that photo, like, that's just devastating.
I think this is our 3rd episode about a group of people not able to come forward because the Doodler, this, and the Frankfurt sewer murders.
Yeah.
Where certain groups of people are targeted that are seen as unsatisfactory in society, and because they're getting killed, it's, society turns kind of a blind eye at the time.
Yep. Unfortunately. About 8 years later, so June 2018, there would be a false alarm of more victims found when a construction crew discovered human remains near the original site, where the first 11 victims were discovered. The state office of the medical investigator, though, quickly determined that they were likely Native American bones from 1100 to 1300 AD, unrelated to the disappearances from the bone collector.
I mean, that's a better case scenario.
Yes. Throughout the investigation, police were hesitant to call this a serial killing, but they did suspect that the bodies were all buried by the same person or persons. I don't know, necessarily why why they wouldn't call it a serial killer. My suspicion would be that it was due to fear, or hysteria / panic that could be elicited from a statement like that, especially if that individual was targeting sex workers. That would create a ton of panic and hysteria in the sex work community. And that's how many of those women make their living, right? Like, if there's panic and hysteria there's people who are going to starve or not have their bills, whatever it may be, because they're afraid. Which, that's a hard job to work in the first place. It's a scary job to work in the first place.
Yep.
But despite this, though, the killer was still given their own moniker of the West Mesa Bone Collector, which, if you ask me, is chilling as fuck.
And I think Bone Collector is it's not necessarily a accurate name because they weren't collecting the bones. The bodies had just decayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very hard time getting behind naming serial killers. Because, when you think of, true crime, you have BTK, which is Blind Torture Kill. Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo. You have, like I said earlier, Randy Kraft, Scorecard Killer. Jeffrey Dahmer, although, did he have a nickname?
I don't think so.
The Cannibal of Milwaukee.
Oh, was.
Yeah, the Ed Kemper, who, you mentioned earlier, he's the co-ed killer. These are, sensationalized names.
Yep.
And it's giving the killers exactly what they want, which is attention.
Notoriety.
And, yeah, exactly.
Especially those that are narcissistic.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about, mass shooters, school shooters, or, people like that, where, when you just give so much attention to the specific person, or the name that you give them, you're falling right into the trap that they wanted, which was to be known. Which, these people don't deserve to be known. But, if anyone was paying attention, I know this is a little off topic, but if anyone was paying attention to the Idaho murders case, there was a sister of one of the victims who read a victim impact statement, and in that she said, you are, nothing, essentially. You will never be anything. Because she was making the point clear that just because you did this thing, you got your 5 seconds of fame in the newspapers and things like that, does not mean that anyone gives a shit about what happens to you. Which the, human side of me, I don't know, feels some type of way. The normal side of me is yeah, go fuck yourself. But I would agree that I don't like giving notoriety to these people, but because we don't know who this killer is, there's no other way to refer to them other than by the nickname they were given.
Or the West Mesa serial killer, maybe a
I don't know.
more mundane name.
Kind of like Lisk, the Long Island serial killer.
Which they did.
Yeah, they did end up finding.
Well, he's still in trial.
Yeah.
Or something cool like the Bay Harbor Butcher.
Is that a real one?
That's Dexter.
Oh.
God, there's so many clips of that now online. Pushing it hard. It's in the rotation.
I tried to watch it. I didn't like it.
YouTube and Instagram rotate on whatever show you want to promote every couple months. And Dexter was in the big thing. It was a big thing that was being pushed by the algorithm last year, and now it's being pushed again.
Nice.
That's just, I keep seeing serial killer stuff.
Yeah. There have never been any official suspects named by the police in connection with the murders, though there are a few individuals that could possibly be responsible, but were never charged with anything. One was Fred Reynolds, who was a pimp / owned an escort service. Gotta be honest that I'm not 100% sure what the correct terminology there is. Who knew one of the missing women and reportedly had photos of missing sex workers in his residence. He apparently was going to all families and friends of the women who were missing, asking for information about their disappearances. And I didn't read that this went anywhere, and that he actually passed just a few weeks before the original 11 bodies were found in January of 2009 of natural causes, and was never able to be interviewed.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Police officers were able to speak with the family members of those that Fred communicated with, and they stated that he didn't seem nefarious but was concerned or curious about the missing women, so possible that they worked for him. A friend of his would say, quote, "He told me he was a former heroin addict himself, and this was the reason he wanted to help the women that worked for him. He wanted them to have a good life," end quote. And then another friend stated, quote, "He wasn't violent, and he wasn't abusive, and he wasn't in any way a killer," end quote. So that's the first guy.
Okay.
Seems unlikely. Seems just like a concerned man. I can't tell, like, I get where the families are coming from, but there's also a part of me that was like, was he concerned because he makes money too off of them, and if they're missing, he's not getting that? Or was it like genuine, I care about these women, and are they missing?
Could be a mix of both those.
That's true. Ulterior motive underneath.
You know, you want to get the money, but also you probably care a little bit about your employees, or I guess that's a generous way of probably calling them.
Yeah. Sounds like from some reports from other people that he did care. Right. One of the best suspects, at least deemed by armchair detectives, and honestly the police too, was
Armchair detectives, but the police too, so it's not as much armchair
no,
detectives.
but they have. I would say the armchair detectives like helped bring it up. Was Lorenzo Montoya, who was a pressman at a local printer office. He reportedly lived only 3 miles from the West Mesa burial site.
That's not far.
Yeah. Officers reportedly became aware of Montoya after he was caught offering an undercover cop $40 for sex. So sting operation, is that what that would be?
Yeah.
He was then arrested again a year later when he raped and strangled a sex worker that he, quote, hired, but had no intentions of paying, considering he only had $2 in his wallet at the time. He is also known for his serious threats against and the beating of his girlfriend, who reported to authorities that he had threatened to kill her and, quote, bury her in lye. She also claimed that he beat her and did, quote, gross things, end quote, to her that she didn't want to elaborate on in the report. Truthfully, I don't blame her.
Yeah, it's getting more fucked up, but yeah, I mean, this whole entire case is fucked up.
Yeah. Co-workers of Montoya would report that he had talked about killing women and burying them on the West Mesa. Y'all, friends don't let friends get away with murder. If your friends are saying something ridiculous, call them out on it or report it to somebody. So many times I hear in true crime that people like say shit or they talk about it in some type of way and everyone just assumes they're harmless and that it's just, oh, it's a joke.
I've actually heard plenty of people say, well, if my friend did murder, I don't think I'd turn him in. I'm like, oh, that's
horrible.
yeah.
No. Friends don't let friends be any of the isms, and friends don't let friends be killers. Sorry. That's just the way that I feel about it. Do I feel like, justification could occur? Sure. Doesn't mean you shouldn't get your justice, though. Like, you're gonna kill somebody, it's gonna be what it be. Anywho, sorry. That was my other soapbox. I have some soapboxes on this. So, In December of 2006, Montoya hired dancer, which I assume is the more appropriate term for stripper,
Probably.
who was 19-year-old sex worker Sharika Hill, and brought her to his own property after meeting her on an online chat room. Montoya would go on to strangle Sharika to death and attempt to place her body in the trunk of his car. Unfortunately for him, but fortunate for the community, the partner slash pimp slash boyfriend of Sharika, Frederick Williams, who I could not get a read on what he actually was to her. Most I saw was that he was her pimp, but they were also dating. Arrived at Montoya's home and witnessed him attempting to place her body in the trunk for transport. Frederick ended up shooting Montoya to death. So at the time, law enforcement said they did not
Valid
believe.
crash out.
What?
Valid response.
Yeah, honestly. At the time, law enforcement said they did not believe that this was the first time Montoya had killed someone because the crime was, quote, too brutal, end quote. Which, if you know anything about serial killings, which, like, some of you probably do, escalation is a thing, right? Like, people who usually, like, and it's not always the case, but what we do know is that someone who commits sex crimes against women and kills them likely started with just sex crimes and then started killing people. That's an escalation in behavior.
And so when did he get killed again?
This was in December of 2006. So
about the time that the burials and disappearances stopped happening.
yeah.
But also at the same time development started, so it could be a coincidence.
Yeah. And the last victim that they say could be part of the West Mesa Bone Collectors went missing. That's Vanessa Reed on June 13th, 2006. So.
And you just said December 2006?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's. Timeline matches up.
Yep. Sorry, trying to make sure the months were right.
No, I appreciate that. Although the murder stopped after that, just like Frank said, police have unfortunately not been able to say without a doubt that Montoya was the serial killer known as the West Mesa Bone Collector. One reason being is that there are current laws that state that DNA is not to be tested until the suspect is booked into jail. And seeing as Montoya was dead, that would never be the case. He would never have his DNA tested.
That's...
Yep.
So say...
Just as bullshit as it sounds.
So say a suspected serial killer is cornered and takes her own life. You can't test her DNA.
Not according to that current law, no. And I don't know if that's a law just in New Mexico or if that's a law across the United States.
I'm going to take a guess that's probably a state law.
I was going to say, just with the number of serial killers that California had, I would argue that... Because like in the Joseph D'Angelo Golden State Killer, they got his DNA off of a tissue from his trash can.
Yeah, and he wasn't booked, so
Yeah.
definitely a state law, but I wonder if that law is still active.
I don't actually know.
Because that's...
I think that there was, like, work to be done. Like, there was people who fight against that.
I mean, if the serial killer goes out in a shootout, you can't prove him of anything else.
With DNA.
Yeah.
Which is, like...
A vital thing
I was
is...
going to say, it's the most conclusive, likely.
Now, did they have DNA of the alleged suspect from the...
I don't believe so. And if they did, it would have been very degraded. These women were unfortunately under dirt for 3 to 5 years.
What I was just curious on, if they got his DNA, what would they match it against?
Honestly, fair. I don't know.
That's when you were mentioning that, I'm trying to think like, oh, it'd be great if they got it, but I'm also thinking like, but where's the benefit?
Yeah.
It would be great to have, but there needs to be a tangible benefit here too.
Well, it could be too that there could be other victims that they haven't identified yet, or they haven't found yet, that they could later connect to him.
Or other killings that they could have. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Yeah, I was thinking too narrow in the people found in the law. As you said, there might be others connected and just other murders in the area that you could connect with.
Yeah. I was thinking narrow too, so. Just took my brain widening a little bit, I suppose.
Big brain moments.
While searching Montoya's home following the murder of Sharika, and then his, being murdered by Sharika's boyfriend, detectives came across a home recording found on Montoya's camera. Only one section of this video has been released to the public at the time of the article that I read, which was, I think, like 2010, I don't know, somewhere around when he died. According to police, the first part of the video shows Montoya having sex with an unidentified and possibly dead woman before fading to black and transitioning to show a wall and a bed in the foreground. During this section of the video, noises can be heard that sound like Montoya tearing duct tape from a roll and opening a garbage bag. It's been theorized that this was Montoya preparing a body for disposal, and screenshots of the unidentified woman have been released in the hope that she can be identified. My understanding is that she has not yet been identified.
Well, that's not good.
No, it's terrifying. At the time of his death, Montoya was holding a flashlight while his victim was wrapped in a blanket near his SUV. I did not understand what... 3 different sources pointed this out, that he was holding a flashlight. I did not understand what the importance of this flashlight would be, and so I kind of looked into it a little bit and saw a lot of sources say that the presence of a flashlight could have been seen as a tool to use in the dark, possibly in an isolated location that doesn't have things like streetlights, which would align with the West Mesa burials.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. So he planned to go somewhere where he'd need to utilize a flashlight.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's a really good connection there and
Yeah.
piecing the parts of the puzzle together.
Yeah. So although Montoya fit the description, again, the West Mesa Bone Collector, serial killer, remains unidentified, and Montoya remains deceased. So not much we can do.
There's more videos, but they only released one.
There's more to the video.
Oh, more to... Okay.
So they only released one section of it.
I'm curious as to what's on the rest.
I'm assuming it was too brutal for them to want to release it to the public.
So he probably killed whoever that was.
Yeah. And then it cuts to the body, like the potential disposal of the body, which is the duct tape garbage bag. In August of 2010, police reportedly searched several properties in Joplin, Missouri that were associated with the local photographer and businessman Ron Irwin. It's reported that this search was in connection to the West Mesa murders because they, quote, confiscated tens of thousands of photos from Ron, who reportedly used to go to the New Mexico State Fair that was located in Albuquerque. The fair is reportedly held near the burial site in West Mesa, and so police eventually confirmed with the public that they had cleared Irwin as a suspect, as they didn't have anything that would tie him to the murders. So my understanding is, even though they have tens of thousands of photos, I don't believe that they could connect that to any of the victims. In December 2010, convicted Colorado serial killer Scott Lee Kimball stated that he was being investigated for the West Mesa murders, but he denied killing the women. Not something I was able to find confirmed in any case. Just small detail in one of the sources. In 2014, a breakthrough on the decade-old case, Albuquerque police caused Albuquerque police... Oh my gosh, I'm starting over, sorry. In 2014, a breakthrough on a decades-old case caused Albuquerque police to become interested in Joseph Blee as a suspect for the murders. Blee was known as the, quote, mid-school rapist, end quote.
What a name to... what the fuck?
And it would be because he had a propensity to break into the homes of 13 to 15-year-old girls who lived near the McKinley Middle School in Albuquerque during the 1980s.
I wouldn't even give somebody a name like that.
Yeah. I hate the monikers.
This one is... That's a very important moniker.
Now, this is really messed up. Hold on to your butts. He would unfortunately rape the girls, one of which he reportedly did via a screwdriver. Remember, these are 13 to 15-year-old girls. It's like horrific.
So we're talking, you said 80s, this is happening.
Yeah.
So how are we connecting it to something?
In 2014, there was a breakthrough in that case. I will explain how.
when did this guy get caught? I have a lot of questions.
I know, I'm getting there. I'm gonna get there.
Get there faster.
Yeah. In one of the cases, there was a DNA sample from a forensic rape kit, but that test kit was not retested following advances in DNA technology until 2010. When retested, Blee was linked to that rape. Between 1990 and 2009, police encountered Blee nearly 140 times, often in drug-heavy areas that the victims of the West Mesa were known to frequent.
How many times?
140 in a almost 2-decade span.
That's an unfathomable number. Holy.
Yep. In 2015, Blee was also suspected by police as being responsible for the killing of a sex worker, as his DNA sample was located on the inner waistband and belt of a sex worker found deceased on Central Avenue in 1985, which was considered a notorious street for sex work in the eastern part of the city. If you remember earlier, one of the girls went missing. She got into a truck on the corner of Central Avenue in a different road. So
same area.
Same area.
But any connection with this guy and having a truck?
Well, I don't know about the truck, to be honest with you. But there is other stuff. He was never convicted. Obviously. No one's been convicted. In 2003, he was arrested after exposing himself to a woman. The police searched his car, and they found rope and electrical tape during the search. So he was probably going to do something more nefarious than that. There was also a tree tag from a nursery nurseries, plants and things like that, was found in the area where the West Mesa victims' bodies were buried, and it was tracked to a nursery in California that would send plants to Albuquerque. Blee's business records indicate he bought plants from that nursery.
Okay, interesting.
That's suspicious. It's unclear if detectives were ever able to tie that tree tag to him directly, so it is really circumstantial that this tree tag has a connection to him. Police also saw him stalking sex workers after the West Mesa murders.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Blee was reportedly imprisoned when the bodies in West Mesa were found, but he became a suspect when his ex-wife contacted the police after their daughter claimed to have found jewelry in female underwear that didn't belong to them in their home. And police confirmed this after they searched his home 8 months into the West Mesa investigation. Later, families of the victims would reveal that the victims did have jewelry that was missing, but they weren't able to, I don't think, correctly identify it. His cellmate, didn't get the guy's name, said that Blee admitted to knowing many of the murdered women through hiring them for their services, and had even hit one of them for allegedly trying to steal his money. He reportedly told this cellmate that the victims were, quote, trashy. Which, fuck him. In 2015...
You're one to determine what's trashy and not, Mr. Middle School Rapist Fucktard.
Yeah. In 2015, Blee was found guilty of sexual assault and charges stemming from the incidents in the 1980s and 1990s, and was sentenced to 90 years in prison. Despite the jewelry, the underwear, and other evidence that appeared to connect him to the case, again, circumstantial, a lack of physical evidence like DNA or even witness reports failed to pin the murders of the West Mesa victims on Blee. But I don't know. I get caught between him and Montoya as being
both have
credible.
Good, credible stuff, or even somebody else.
Even somebody else, but I feel like Montoya, we can get into it later too.
Also, what's Albuquerque's population?
Actually, I don't know. I can look it up though.
Yeah, I'm just curious how big of a place we're talking here. I'm pretty sure it's a fair size area. I'm pretty sure that's where Breaking Bad takes place.
Yeah. According to Google, it's 560,000 as of 2024.
That's a lot of people. So, it could easily be anybody else, too.
Yeah. It could be people working together, too.
Yeah.
But, this is the part that I don't get behind this, necessarily. But I do think it's important to have it in here. There was also speculation that the women and girls may have been involved in a large interstate sex trafficking operation. According to the El Paso Times, the presence of Selenia Edwards among the victims has led authorities to believe that sex trafficking gangs could have been involved. Edwards was from Oklahoma, but was known to have been in Texas and Colorado before ending up in Albuquerque. It is unknown, however, if she traveled on her own or if she was trafficked there.
She's not the one who was last seen in Colorado, right?
She is the one.
Oh, she is the one? Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to make sure which... It's
Yeah.
been a while since we said the names.
Yeah, so young too, 15. Several arrests and convictions in El Paso, Texas indicated that Albuquerque is part of a broader sex trafficking route, that it also includes the states of Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas, as well as the Mexican city of Juarez. Reportedly, sex traffickers would take advantage of regularly scheduled events such as the New Mexico State Fair, same as that for Irwin Gay, to take advantage of the reliably heavier traffic. If there's heavier traffic, it's easier to take people. According to New Mexico State University, the FBI has investigated long-haul truckers as suspects in murders of sex workers along major highways, and authorities reportedly believe that Edwards had been one of them. The El Paso Crime Stoppers Office received an anonymous tip in 2010 that a suspect whose last name was Coda had killed a girl named Mimi or Chocolate, both of which were nicknames that Edwards had been known to go by. Despite the tip, however, again, the West Mesa Bone Collector remains unknown.
I don't think it would be a trucker though if they're leaving it this consistent area, because if I'm not mistaken, trucker serial killers leave them on like the side of the road or like not too far from the highway.
Yeah.
We're talking
or at rest stops.
Yeah, we're talking about a more out of way area that would be residential, and to get a tractor trailer out there, you're going to be spotted.
My thought too, like, one, I feel like Chocolate is probably a very
common name.
And she was African. She was the only black girl. Like, very common for sex workers as a nickname. And I also feel too like it's possible that maybe a trucker is the one who drove her, like, to Colorado, and then she whatever it may be that got her down there. She could have exchanged sex work for being able to ride with them. I'm not sure. But I don't know how I feel about this one. According to the Crime Stoppers report, quote, the caller advised the suspect never admitted to killing the women, but did admit to having picked up the women and paid them in exchange for sex. The caller has reason to believe the suspect is responsible for the West Mesa, New Mexico murders as well, and may also be responsible for several murders in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's what WI is, right?
Wisconsin, yeah.
Okay. The tipster claimed that the suspect had been a member of El Salvador's military special forces, and had further alleged that the suspect is, quote, very violent and exhibits a very strong hate towards women, end quote. The tipster told Crime Stoppers that Coda allegedly once boasted that, quote, you will see me all over the news one day, end quote. The suspect, the tipster again alleged, used to be involved in drug trafficking and had a relative that was arrested on drug charges in California. They alleged that the suspect's nickname was El Tigre, was between 55 and 56 years old in 2010. Had a thin build, reddish hair, and drove a light burgundy-colored van, so not our white truck. The suspect reportedly worked as an Interstate 18-wheel truck driver and had lived in Albuquerque and West Oakland, California. Yeah. With the involvement of a sex trafficking ring having been suspected, it is no giant leap that a certain known sex trafficker would thought to be involved. Some have drawn links to an estate/ranch that was owned by financier and human trafficker Jeffrey Epstein at the time. Reportedly, this ranch was close in proximity to the site of the killings, though I'm not sure whether it was confirmed that the victims were killed where they were found, killed before. I don't know. I don't know that proximity necessarily. I mean, like, it does, because when we think about Montoya, he lived 3 miles away, but if he killed the one girl at his house, he probably killed the other ones there too.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's the same for this way around.
Now, you mind if I poke some holes in this one?
Can I finish my one sentence?
Yes.
The targets also reportedly matched similar characteristics to Epstein's known victims, and some have even theorized that the victims could have been targets of Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking ring directly. Despite all the possibilities, again, no conclusive evidence linking anyone to the murders of these women, and the cases remain unsolved.
Now, can I say something about the human trafficking ring?
Yes.
I don't think we're aware of anyone that was killed in Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring.
Yep.
And also, as our great Lord Emperor says, Epstein is a hoax. It's a hoax made
There is
up
no left.
by Obama. Obama made up the hoax, and for some reason, Obama put Bill Clinton on this hoax.
Bill Clinton putting himself on the hoax.
Yeah, Clinton and Obama made this hoax. Bill thought, you know what? I'll throw him a bone. I'll put myself in this list. It's all a hoax. Stop talking about Epstein. Nobody wants to hear about him. We're done. Now watch me hit this drive and tank the economy.
Damn. You really took it there.
He's covering up shit.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's fucking ridiculous, and
That'll end up on our unknown unsolved unseen.
I'm trying to wait till it's not too politically charged, despite what I just said.
Fair.
But
It
like,
was on my list for like one of the first 10 episodes, and we moved it because a bunch more shit was coming out at the time.
yeah, and ever since then, it's gotten more and more politically charged. It might be also better that we haven't done it yet because of the sheer amount of additional information that keeps coming out.
So it's going to take me forever.
It's probably there's so much more information that is going to come out, and that also might never come out. They're still doing subpoenas and whatnot. Ghislaine Maxwell's still getting her pampered treatment after talking with the Department of Justice. Yeah, fuck her, and I can't believe she's now getting preferential treatment, which is fishy as fuck. She's at a place that does not take sex traffickers or sex offenders, but yet she got there.
Ugh.
She's not allowed to work with the therapy dogs and service animals that they train there, and that's what she's not allowed to do, and that's like her one restriction.
That's good, though.
It's still shitty that that's her only like one restriction.
I know, but
she gets to go to Club Fed.
When you're working with sex offenders, sometimes it's about availability.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, that's me on my soapbox talking about this whole entire Epstein shit and how it's fucking ludicrous now. But Sage, go back on about the West Mesa Bone Collector. Is there much more to go on this?
I have just some theories.
Okay. I just didn't know how many more things there were to go, because obviously, as you guys can tell by how long this is a longer episode.
Yep. Not too much more information, but a little bit more. I do have a soapbox to get back on, though. I can't help but feel that this, case remaining unsolved comes a lot from the lack of urgency by local police and even their families at the time that the women went missing. Many of the families of the victims claim that the local police made no effort to find them after they were reported missing. Probably because of their own stigmatization against them. The women knew each other from Albuquerque's war zone, the notorious neighborhood where prostitutes and drug dealers were often seen and located. They were young and Hispanic. Many were mothers, and all were living what the Albuquerque police euphemistically, that's a word that I quote.
What?
Euphemistically, like a euphemism.
Okay, that's better.
Refer to as a, quote, high-risk lifestyle. Here's my soapbox. Female prostitutes are more likely to be murdered than any other woman. Oh, thank you for catching that. I'm going to repeat myself. This is because I pulled it from an article.
Okay.
Female sex workers are more likely to be murdered than other women, and they have a much higher chance of being murdered by a serial killer, according to a 2006 study published in the Journal of Forensic Scientists. There are many reasons for this, including the accessibility of sex workers on the street and the internet, and the fact that many communities already see sex workers as a problem that should just go away. According to Dirk Gibson, an associate professor of communication and journalism at the University of New Mexico, he reports that he has no faith that anything will change when it comes to the police being incentivized to look harder for these types of victims. He's quoted as stating, "Albuquerqueans don't relate to the victims. They think they're just a bunch of hookers and drug addicts."
See, the only thing I can relate to at all is I think sex work is a problem. I think the solution is not sweeping them under the rug and ignoring them. You gotta address the problems. You gotta address the root cause of poverty, the income inequality in this country, and the systems in place that keep you down and do not allow you to ascend once you get to a certain point. Sure, you can, get wealthy in life and whatnot, but there's a certain point where when you get poor, there are certain barriers that prevent you from going back out of it and keep you in there.
Well, it's
And
like with the homeless, a lot of jobs you have to have an address.
a lot of jobs have an address. Homeless shelters only have limited spaces. Some of them are filled up by 2 p.m. during the day, so you can't stay at your 4 p.m. job if you want to go out get a spot in the shelter, or you got to work in the evening. What jobs are there in the evening? Sex work.
Yeah.
So you have people who are a product of a broken system, and that's, I mean, sorry if I'm also on my soapbox, but the system's broken. The inability to find a solution or want to find a solution is a problem. There are ways to go around this, better funding and formatting to our shelters, more money into there to make sure that we can try and get people out. So, as I said, the system is rigged against you, and I hate to sound so defeatist, but you, say you said you want that job, you need a permanent address, you don't have one. Tough luck, buddy. You ain't getting that job. You're stuck homeless for good.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Kicked out or arrested for being homeless.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, there's thank God this didn't happen, but there was at one point a plan in Arizona, the neighboring state, that homeless people would be deported to other states. You're homeless in Arizona, you're getting deported. You're not allowed to live in Arizona anymore. That was at one point a plan. And that is abhorrent.
Yeah.
The solutions that some people
It's like what's
recommend.
In DC.
Yeah. I was just say this: one side has more abhorrent plans than the other. They don't want to address the root cause. They want to address the problem, the product, not the cause. You need to go down to the lowest level of this, to why it's happening, not just try and get the after effect, because that's what happens. You can't plug the leak as more comes in. It's like when people talk about illegal immigration. Our immigration system is absolutely fucking bad. What do? We don't fix it. We just try and keep plugging, and your ship's sinking and it's taking in water. Do you cover that leak, or do you just keep taking a bucket and dumping shit out the entire time? Because you're going to sink eventually, because you ain't faster. You in one bucket is not going to do it. You need to seal that leak and then address any other problems.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get really heated on this at times because I know people personally who give the most dog shit opinions on this and dog shit solutions, and I'm like,
For sure.
you lack the intelligence to understand that this is a more complex problem and that there's better solutions than to just get rid of them or kill them all, is what some people think. And you are an abhorrent human being if you think of that.
Got him.
God, you got me heated today.
No, 100% agree. And I'm just probably going to piss you off more as I read what I'm about to read. So, according to FBI data released in 2011, 70% of serial killer victims since 1985 have been women, mostly in their 20s or 30s, with a large majority of that being sex workers. Quote, the majority of victims of serial killers are what I call the less dead. As far as the public is concerned, they are less alive because they tend to be the marginalized groups in society. In this case, drug addicts and prostitutes, says Stephen Egger, who teaches criminology at the University of Houston, Clear Lake in Texas, and has been a consultant for the FBI. He also says, quote, there's an attitude that permeates the press and the public that reduces pressure on police, it's a lot of peace, to solve the crime, at least initially, until we've got a number of victims.
When you said that, I thought of like the vegetable peas.
Oh, no. Attitude that permeates the press and the public that reduces pressure on police. Additionally, the tragic truth is that sex workers make for very easy targets and are often distanced from their relatives while communities are blind to their disappearance. Most of them hadn't even been reported missing at the time that their remains were found.
Legalized for oversight.
Just for reference, I'm just going to give a true warning because I'm about to get pretty graphic when I talk about a couple other serial killers. Just for reference, there were 48 to 49 women linked to serial killer Gary Ridgway, who also targeted sex workers in the 1980s and 90s, but in Washington state. He was dubbed the Green River Killer because he would bury his victims along the Green River. Despite having almost 20 or so more victims than famed serial killer Ted Bundy, who confessed to at least 30 murders, Ted Bundy's case would receive more attention and sympathy from the public because the victims were college students, many of which were murdered in the same state as the Green River Killer's victims. And Ted Bundy killed these women in the 1970s, yet he still received more attention than that of Gary Ridgway because of his victim profile. Christine Barber, executive director of Safe Streets New Mexico in Albuquerque, had been shocked by the 2009 discovery of the 11 victims because she hadn't even known so many girls and women were missing. Friends and family of the victims had reported them as missing persons to the Albuquerque Police Department, but Barber doesn't recall the department alerting the city that so many girls and women had disappeared off the streets. She's quoted as saying, quote, "That's why the West Mesa killer was able to do it. No one noticed. They were gone." Barber also reported that she happened to be sitting with another group of volunteers on that in that group when the news broke of the West Mesa murders. And, quote, "One of those women there was Cindy Jaramillo. She said she knew all too well what was going on." So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her because I think her story is important as a part of this. Cindy Vigil Jaramillo was supporting herself through sex work in 1999 when David Parker Ray, known as the Toy Box Killer, do not look this case up unless you are aware of your own triggers and can verify you can handle this case because it is incredibly fucked. Like, I'm not going to go into detail about it. It is really horrible. I just have to say that. If you believe you can, listen to it. The Girls at Morbid have an incredible multi-part series on him. Go listen to them. I love them, obviously. If he was caught, not a case we would ever do in here. It's also, like, it's really bad. But he had kidnapped and imprisoned Cindy in his trailer in Elephant, I think it's Butte, Butte.
Okay.
It's not Elephant Butt, right?
I have no idea.
Butte, because there's an E on the end, it's French.
Oh, there's an E on the end, yeah.
Okay.
I thought you said B-U-T-T.
No, Butte.
I missed the E for some reason. I'm like, she just spelled butt.
Yeah. In Elephant Butte, a city just south of Albuquerque. By then, he had already tortured and murdered as many as 40 women, and would have killed Jaramillo if she... I think it might be Jaramillo. It's with a J, but I believe that she is...
I have no idea.
Okay. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing names. If she hadn't escaped and notified the police. Christine Barber would go on to speak of Cindy, stating, quote, "She knew very well that if she didn't escape from him, which she did after 3 days, no one was going to report her missing. And no one was really going to pay attention to her disappearance, just like the West Mesa cases." Cindy now sits on the board of directors for Christine's Safe Streets of New Mexico organization, founded because it's a response to the West Mesa killings, and it keeps track of sex workers and alerts the public if they go missing. Essentially, it takes it back to recognizing that these people are human beings, worthy of being missed and searched for. So this group is doing what the government should be doing, which is in somewhat way regulating it. Not, money-wise and things like that, but they're keeping track of the women, which I think is important. I'm getting to the point of wrapping up. By 2016, only one detective had remained full-time on the case, Mark Moraney. He had interviewed over 200 local women with similar criminal backgrounds and vocations as the women found in West Mesa. He created timelines for every suspect that the women could identify. But many persons of interest that were found through these interviews have been eliminated because of the timeline that the officer was able to make when he lined it up with the West Mesa murders. This is just an interesting tidbit. A few years before the discovery of the burial site, there was a detective with the Albuquerque Police Department named Ida Lopez, who noticed that women with ties to drugs and sex work had been vanishing off the streets of Albuquerque. She created a list of missing sex workers in the area and intended to make it known that these women were missing. On the list were nearly all of the West Mesa victims, other than a couple, which I would assume would be Jamie and Solania, because they were 15 and one was 15, not involved in sex work. The other one was from out of state. She's stated, quote, "We have persons of interest that we're looking into and we continue, so I just don't want it to be out there that we're losing tips because people assume that we've got this number one suspect and we're not there yet. The Albuquerque Police Department is proposing legislation to identify DNA even when someone has died. For example, If a person who was arrested for a felony died before they were charged, their DNA would be in the federal CODIS DNA system. Because again, there are suspects, but there's no DNA evidence for them as they had never been booked on anything. That's the
Yeah,
case
as I
with Montoya.
said earlier, either you get killed or you kill yourself, and
Yeah.
the trail ends there on the DNA path, at least.
Yeah. Another little interesting thing. Cinnamon Elks, one of the victims, is reported as telling friends shortly before her August 2004 disappearance that a dirty cop was chopping off the heads of prostitutes and burying them on the West Mesa, end quote. According to Jolene Gutierrez Kruger of the Albuquerque Journal. The cause of death for the victims has never been released, though I did read that some suspect their cause of death was strangulation, as it's not known whether the bones revealed how the women had died or not. Likely they were not decapitated, but there's no information to confirm yes or no whether that was the case, whether her understanding was right. The police have refused to reveal details of the evidence uncovered at the crime scene, similar to the photos. An 18-foot deep pit called, quote, the Bowl, on a 92-acre site west of the city. My initial thought is that this, and not sharing the causes of death, are likely a tactic to keep information close to the chest, so they can hopefully catch the killer by the suspect having information that's never been released to the public. The police have also not speculated about suspects, except to assure residents that if the murders were the work of a serial killer, the perpetrator has either died or moved to another city. I also think that moving to another city could be plausible if there are deaths elsewhere that match the MO. But if the information is held to the chest about how the victims died, then it's unlikely that there could be a copycat killer out there, and it would rather be the real killer. Obviously, targeting sex workers and strangling them and burying them is not the world's most original MO, so it's possible it's around, but I do believe, there had to be certain things they're not telling us that would connect to another killer instead of a copycat, if that were the case. Which, if people don't know, a copycat killer is someone who takes the exact MO or as close to that MO of another killer and kills people that way. Despite the reassurance from the Albuquerque Police Department that the killer is no longer a threat, and that at this time, I don't believe that there's been any other victims been found, the story of the West Mesa Bone Collector victims has kept the city of Albuquerque on edge for the last 16 or so years. And unless someone with knowledge of the murders decides to come forward, it's very unlikely the police will ever declare the case officially solved. So anyone with information about them or the West Mesa murders can call the Albuquerque Police Department's 118th Street Task Force at 1-877-765-8273 or 505-768-2450. Or you can call Crime Stoppers at 505-843-STOP. You may also email information to investigator Ida Lopez at ilopez@cabq.gov. So I encourage you, if someone you know was there at the time, might have any information, reach out with any tips you might have. Do not bombard tip collectors with dumb shit. These are real things, a real thing that needs to be solved, real people's lives that were at stake. And so if you happen to have real legitimate evidence that could be help, share it. That is how we catch assholes like this.
Man, it's crazy how sometimes we go from literally a haunted place in Kansas to absolutely fucked up serious case to lizard next week.
Yeah. Lizard. I hated that meme when it started, but now I kind of love it. It's how I feel about my life. That's just me every day. Lizard.
Hit that lizard button.
Yeah. There was a girl I saw on Instagram who changed her boss's space on his keyboard to make that sound. So every time he hit space, it would say lizard.
Oh my god.
But, anyway. Little, small palate cleanser at the end of a pretty horrific episode. So I hope everybody, Frank, do you have final thoughts?
I think this is insanely fucked up, and I can't even imagine who did it. But you put some decently plausible cases, but also, as you said, this is not an original MO, so it could be
Yeah.
somebody we have no idea about or not even on the radar.
Yeah, it's definitely devastating.
Yeah. So, what do you got for a conclusion here?
Honestly, I just had that people should contact the Crime Stoppers or the police, or Ida Lopez. But I don't know. I mean, the two of the guys, Blee and Montoya, seem like pretty plausible cases for me. Blee is still alive, I believe, at this time. I can't remember. Obviously, we know Montoya is dead. He seems to match up pretty close just because his death kind of coincided timeline wise pretty well. But if that law doesn't pass, or if it hasn't passed, they won't ever be able to test his DNA to see if they can connect it to anything, if there is anything on the bodies. Because again, they didn't release all the information. So, but no, I had a hard time researching this. I did good research. Like I feel like I did a lot of research on it, but it was definitely really hard. And so I can only imagine it's hard for people to listen to as well. So please make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. Um, Go hug your loved one. Go tell your friends you said hi. I don't know.
Tell your dog I said hi.
Yeah, care for your people. Make sure you're looking out for them. See who's not doing okay and who needs some support. So that's my conclusion. So this is a piece of shit person, and I want everybody to go take care of themselves rather than thinking about this person.
Right.
That's what I got for you.
Well, that being said, I think that's everything then. You want me to wrap us up here?
Yeah.
Alright, guys, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, check out our other episodes. If you already have, then that's great. Go spread the word of our podcast, whether it's your friends, family, other random people, coworkers you don't like. Spread the word. Go check us out on our socials, our TikTok, Blue Sky, and Instagram. I'm hoping to start posting on this TikTok soon. Maybe revive the Blue Sky and continue posting on Instagram. I'm already active there. Check out the other podcasts that we've been promoting. We hope to promote more of them, like we did Canadian Creepies today, as long as we can edit that in today, because I don't think I recorded properly. And Grimly, who we did the other week. So if you guys are liking what you're hearing, keep checking this stuff out and follow us in then on whatever you listen to podcast. Rate, review, subscribe, follow. Every little bit matters. Every rate, review, or all that stuff that helps boost us on the algorithm. That helps us get seen. We really appreciate when any of you do that. Uh, really like when you guys do that. We see it all and we appreciate it all. And with that being said, I think that's all I have to say. Sage, any final thoughts for you here?
Nope.
All right, and remember
To look for
the unknown
the unsolved.
and the unseen.
Thanks for listening.
Bye,
Take care of
guys.
yourselves, everybody.
Yep.
See you next week.
Bye.